This is the farm of the late Paul Barcy and his son Paul Jr., successful cattle ranchers of Ferndale, Washington, 7 miles southeast of Birch Bay, close to the Canada-U.S. border. In 1966, Intelco built an aluminum smelter 1.5 miles from their farm. By 1968, the Barcys noticed that many of their animals were becoming debilitated, but they didn't realize until many months later that it was the fluoride emissions from Intelco's smelter which were poisoning their cattle, causing damage to plants, and in some cases killing their trees. In 1970, they commissioned the late Dr. C.C. Gordon, head of the Botany Department, University of Montana, to conduct a study in preparation for a damage suit against Intelco. This mandible on the left was from a cow brought to the Barcy farm after the 2 incisors had formed. These teeth are the only ones not poisoned. The rest are poisoned by fluoride and are worn down to the nerves, making it extremely painful for the animal to eat or to drink cold water. On the right, we have a cow exposed from birth on the Barcy farm, and as you can see, all the teeth are worn down to the nerves. Here the cows are drinking as a dog would drink, trying to warm the water with their tongues to lessen the pain of cold water against exposed nerves. For comparison, the cow drinking on the left has normal teeth and is sucking in water in the normal way. This is a side view of the lower jaw of an animal exposed from birth. Some teeth are completely worn down to the gums. These 8mm films were taken by Paul Barcy Jr. and were used in the Barcy's suit against Intelco. You can see that these animals find it very painful to walk. This is caused by the bony outgrowths on the bones called exostosis and the calcification of the ligaments. The case went to court in 1972, and the Barcys were awarded $83,000 in damages. They felt this was an insufficient award and decided to appeal. The appeal court was held in 1975, and they were awarded $177,150, as follows. Discomfort and annoyance, Paul Barcy Sr., $125,000. Discomfort and annoyance, Paul Barcy Jr., $25,000. Damage to cattle, $18,150. Loss of use of property, $9,000. There have been many similar awards for fluoride poisoning. One award of special interest took place in Portland, Oregon on October 15, 1957. Despite the assistance of 7 other companies, including Alcoa, Kaiser, and Harvey Aluminum, the Reynolds Metal Company was forced to pay Paul Martin and family $30,000 for personal injuries caused by fluoride gases discharged by Reynolds Aluminum Smelter at Troutdale, Oregon. These bones are from Icelandic sheep who died in conjunction with the fluorine emissions from the activity of the volcano Hekla in 1845. This bone abnormality is called exostosis. In the early 1900s, 2 dentists, Drs. Black and McKay, wanted to know what was causing the disfigured teeth of the people drinking the artesian water in the arid areas of the southwest United States, such as Texas and Colorado. It wasn't until 1931 that they confirmed that it was the natural fluoride in the water that was causing this dental fluorosis, also known by the names Texas teeth and Colorado brown stain. It was also during this time that 2 scientists, Professor Fleming Muller and Dr. S.V. Gudjonsson, had already found and described chronic fluorine poisoning among Danish cryolite workers. In 1937, Dr. K. Roholm published his monumental study of chronic fluoride poisoning after the Danish government commissioned him in 1932 to study in-plant cryolite workers who were suffering from fluorosis, fluoride poisoning. The ore was mined in Greenland and shipped to Denmark for sale to the aluminum smelting industry, who used it for refining aluminum. Dr. Roholm reviewed all the literature on fluorine intoxication up to that time and did numerous clinical studies. Cryolite is sodium aluminum fluoride. It contains 54% fluorine, a pale yellow, highly poisonous gas. Under normal circumstances, the ore is relatively insoluble, but Roholm found that the workers were swallowing the dust, and the hydrochloric acid of the stomach made it more soluble. The fluoride is absorbed into the bloodstream through the intestines. Some is excreted, principally by the kidneys, and the rest is taken out of the general circulation and deposited in the bones, as are other toxic substances such as lead, mercury, and strontium-90. Gaseous fluoride can also be absorbed through the respiratory system and through the skin. Here we have a picture of dental fluorosis. Upper left, a normal dentition. The others are the teeth of the children of female cryolite workers. The children were suckled for long periods, 1 to 2 years, and were poisoned through the mother's milk. This is an example of osteosclerosis, over-mineralization of the columna. The normal spine is on the left. Note the gap between the vertebrae. The center picture is osteosclerosis of the second phase. Here the ligaments are partly calcified. Extreme right is the third phase. Even the cartilage between the vertebrae is partly calcified. This is osteosclerosis of the final stage. Note the vertebrae are all fused together in one solid bone. This is a male cryolite worker employed for 12 years. He has no mobility of the spine, and this condition is called poker back. Cryolite for the aluminum industry is now made synthetically from fluorspar, calcium fluoride. This picture was taken from the film Skeletal Fluorosis, produced by the late Dr. Amjit Singh. These are spines in cross-section, the normal on the right. Note the spinal canal. The one on the left has the canal almost completely closed by bony outgrowth. This osteosclerosis was caused from drinking naturally fluoridated water. Most artesian waters that contain fluoride naturally also contain excessive amounts of calcium and/or magnesium. They're both antidotes to this poison and help to buffer the harmful effects. Such is not the case in this area of India, where this study is taken, and dietary deficiencies of the natives compounds the problem. We now know that aluminum smelters can be major sources of fluoride pollution, but they're not alone. All the smelting industries, lead, zinc, copper, steel, etc., can be a source of fluoride pollution, either from the ore or the use of fluorspar, calcium fluoride, as a fluxing agent. Fluoride dusts and gases are emitted to the atmosphere by many types of industrial operations. These include the manufacture of fiberglass, kiln firing of brick and ceramic materials, melting of raw materials in glass making, and use of fluoride-containing chemicals for cleaning, etching, and electroplating in the manufacturing processes. Add to these phosphate fertilizer plants, coal-burning utility plants, some oil refineries, uranium refineries, and so on. As far back as 1968, fluoride emissions in the United States from major industrial sources alone was estimated by the National Academy of Sciences, Washington, D.C., to total 118,700 tons. Millions of pounds are still used in agriculture in the herbicide trifluralin and as a poison for predator control in a product known as 1080. We know that trees can absorb poisonous gaseous fluoride and sulfur dioxide through the stomata. However, the fluoride can be up to 1,000 times more toxic. Animals and people can absorb gaseous fluoride into the bloodstream from the lungs, and fluoride through the intestines from the food they eat and water they drink. The industrial pollutant fluoride has and still is doing a lot of damage to the ecosystem. Unfortunately, few people are aware of this, even those in the environmental movement. Intelco has spent many millions of dollars in pollution control equipment since these films were made. Paul G. Barcy has since passed away, and his son, Paul N. Barcy, is now able to continue raising cattle. Had it not been for the superhuman efforts of the late environmentalist Dr. C.C. Gordon, the situation would be much worse in places like Trail and Kitimat, B.C., Ferndale, Washington, and many other areas of North America and Europe.
Of those plants which accumulate fluoride, some do not show visible injury. Grasses are such a type of a plant. Also, you have garden vegetables such as lettuce that do not show visible injury. The animals that consume this vegetation that shows no injury will accumulate this fluoride from ingesting this type of vegetation. Here is a leg bone of a normal deer. Here you have very smooth bone tissue. Here is an abnormal bone. It's called a fluoritic bone. Instead of a smooth surface over the bone, you have these spines. These spines will dig into the flesh. This causes the animal to become lame, and he will have a tendency not to move around as rapidly. Fluoride accumulation also causes an abnormal change in the teeth of animals. For instance, you have a jawbone here from a deer that had accumulated excessive amounts of fluoride. This rapid wearing of the top of the teeth here exposes the nerves. This occurs in most all wild indigenous animals that consume the forage containing the fluorides, and it also happens to domestic animals such as cows.
It's important to realize that fluoride pollutants from industry are the source of fluoride for the artificial fluoridation of communal water supplies. The United States Environmental Protection Agency considers this an ideal use. In a letter to Dr. L.A. Russell, the agency states, in regard to the use of fluosilicic acid as a source of fluoride for fluoridation, this agency regards such use as an ideal environmental solution to a long-standing problem. By recovering byproduct fluosilicic acid from fertilizer manufacturing, water and air pollution are minimized, and water utilities have a low-cost source of fluoride available to them. Canada's National Research Council, however, has another opinion. In their publication, Environmental Fluoride, under the section Toxic Effects, they have this to say: undesirable side effects, i.e. dermatological, gastrointestinal, and neurological symptoms, were seen in 1% of a group of children and pregnant women ingesting 1 to 1.2 milligrams of fluoride per day in tablet form. The same symptoms have since been observed in people who had adverse reactions after using fluoride-containing toothpaste. If you're concerned about the intake of this dangerous industrial pollutant through the air you breathe, the food you eat, and through your water supply to which it has been added, ask yourself the question, is there a safe daily dose? Scientists point out that some individuals are far more sensitive to fluoride poisoning than others, and there are eminent authorities who say there is no safe dose.